Hello, I'm LinkingX2 and today we will talk about the drafts in the Nongshim vs T1 series in the second round robin of the LCK. T1 has kept their recent roster and now let's see what these young guns get to play. In game number 1 we're starting with the bans Irelia, Gnar and Sunderer. So two of these, Irelia and Sunderer, obviously go against Clozer. While Sunderer is not the best pick for him personally, in my opinion at least, he has shown greater proficiency on her over the time. Now obviously against Zeus. Zeus' debut game was against Rich, where he played the Gnar to a great extent. As such, banning him here makes quite a lot of sense for them. On the other side, Udyr, Kai'Sa and Rell. So Udyr, quite powerful still in the LCK, as such the priority on him is quite high. Rell and Kai'Sa has been the duo that has seen the most priority over the last week, and with Rell popping off internationally everywhere, the ban does make a lot of sense here. First pick Nidalee, also a different category here, as she does not really make that much sense. For Peanut, the high priority on the pick, understandable, but in the current game she's not really all that practical, and you have to indicate that you need winning lanes, and Nidalee obviously likes the top side way more. Answering this with Renekton and Lilia, champions that can kinda against the Nidalee topside focus, as they are usually stronger. While Renekton blind obviously can be counterpicked, it is also a form of pick away, because Renekton Nidalee obviously a very bread and butter combination here. So while she struggles a bit against Nidalee in the early game, her clear speed is still very superb and she will be able to match that at least. Continuing with Samira Alistar, which is very unaligned to the team comp that they seemingly were going for with the Nidalee, unless Nidalee was just a standalone pick. So the Samira, high priority in Korea as of now. Interesting is here, Samira obviously needs to be snowed a bit, and against especially T1's bottom lane with Teddy and Carrier, or Gumayusi and Carrier in any iteration, that's quite brave, because obviously T1's bot lane has been very strong and has dominated many matchups to a very large extent. So picking something that already says I'm going to snowball here is very brave. Also not counter picking it into anything but blinding Samira here. Brave. Obviously an AD carry and the following: hide your solo lanes here, so I guess you could do that. But Dekdam has been the strongest player in the team, so sacrificing his pick with something very short-sighted is not the way to go. Also not really adding too much lane pressure for the Samira, so overall their bot lane really wants to get going, but chances are that they won't see any attention and any wins early on. T1 rounding up the first phase with the Lucian pick here, the AD mid laner in most cases alongside Lilia, causing very strong topside focus here for T1 with a very powerful early and mid game combination here in the 2v2s and 3v3s for any skirmish. We see Kalista and Aphelios added to the bunch. Obviously Teddy's Kalista very strong, very powerful. Additionally, Kalista enabling Carrier, who is a very, if not the best support at the moment in the league. Obviously a very powerful pick here for T1 especially. The Aphelios also, Teddy has shown great proficiency on him as of late, so even if Gumayusi is not playing, he can be taken away. Again, I have to say, the Aphelios bans do not make that much sense. Ban the Thresh, and Aphelios also has to go because he really is reliant on him, and picking Aphelios without Thresh is very greedy in a sense. On the other side, Sion and Azir. So Azir into Lucian can be kinda fine. It's not the strongest matchup obviously, but it's a decent matchup in many people's opinion. The Sion obviously would be a brick against the Renekton Lilia, which go for a topside focus, and obviously with Lilia showing to be the only AP champion, a Sion with full armor would be really much unkillable. Continuing with the next pick phase, Galio is elected here for Carrier, most likely because obviously Galio can be flexed into the mid lane, as well as Lucian can go into the AD carry position, but with Lucian already shown and more relevant in mid lane, Galio is most likely going into the support position, working here really nicely with Lilia and Renekton obviously, and his W and CC can shut down Samira and Italy if they should try to get in too close. NS rounding up their draft with an Aatrox for Rich and Victor for Bay in the mid lane. So Victor against Lucian, kinda similar to Azir in the sense that he is not countering him, but would do fairly okay in the laning phase. While he lost the pressure, he would be defending the turret effectively. The Aatrox pick though is a larger issue here. Against the Renekton it's a noun self-counter pick here, so that's really strange. Also Renekton, he's okay working with Nidalee, but Nidalee also here with the issue with an AP mid laner, not finding much synergy there. And overall Aatrox Nidalee would just lose out to Renekton Lilia, considering also the mid lane prior that Lucian will have, so any river fights that should ensue over the Herald or early Crabs will always go in T1's favor here. NS overall has a kind of mess of a comp, so Aatrox is most likely going to lose. Nidalee on her own against Lilia can do okay, but we're coming to that in a second. In the mid lane, while Victor will not be solo killed most likely, he will also be pushed in. And the bot lane, Samira Alistar really have little ways to go about dealing with Galio Ezreal, as they are also very safe and most likely have the push. So all three lanes are going in different kind of favors for T1, which further enables Lilia to invade. Nidalee, yes, she can win 1v1s, but Lilia can be very elusive and just steal camps here and there and move in and out. And with the constant support from all lanes, she can really push ahead here. T1, as I mentioned, a huge draft lead. Not only are the champions fitting to their players' playstyle, right, Lucian for Clozer for example, but also with all the lane priority, they can just really pop off with their newer playstyle of win lane, win game, considering that the only lane that could be considered a bit weak side here is the bot lane with Teddy and Carrier, but their champions Galio and Ezreal are also the most prevalent, or one of the most prevalent weak side champions, and considering also the terrain here of obviously the red side bot lane, they're very safe here. So yeah, they're picking champions towards their playstyle and towards their players, which is obviously very smart and sadly has not been done in the past too much. The thing here is, considering team fights later on, they have potential engage and their frontline of Renekton Galio, while not being too tanky themselves, they can create a lot of space for the double AD carries to deal with the very squishy Aatrox. Again, remember Gordrinker has been nerfed repeatedly, so Aatrox is not as strong and as of a menace as before, and also he will be put behind through the laning phase against the Renekton Lilia, which most likely will pay close attention to what he's doing. Remember, Galio also can roam, and Ezreal obviously not only with the red side here, but also with his usual safe kit, and Teddy's obviously laning prowess will be very safe in even a 1 versus 2 scenario here, so Galio even can further support the top side of the map. This led to T1 picking up the first game, with all lanes going into their favor, with the great ability of play from Oner in the jungle and Clozer's mid lane dominance. The duo of them then snowballed that pressure through various means around the map, and the aggressive playstyle being continued over and over led to a snowball by these very young players. They seem to be very proactive in their style, and giving them these champions, obviously very much inclined to that nature of them. But coming to game number 2 here, so we see in the ban phase, T1 has moved the Azir pick further in their priority, and Rel, obviously that does make sense. As I mentioned, these champions are very powerful. You could look to pick the Rel obviously on the here B1, but it's understandable that you might want to ban her if you don't have that high priority on her personally as carrier as a player here. On the other side, we continue with the same bans here against Clozer and the Udyr here On the other side, again a very high priority pick in SDK still. Renekton B1, yeah, high priority on the pick here, doesn't make sense. Even though it worked out in the last game, even though you also might think his lane priority style is what T1's looking for. Remember, there are a million ways to play around Renekton. Either you go for a tank matchup or you go for one of the other billion of counters against him. So B1 Renekton, still not great, still very bad. Nidalee and Thresh here. The Nidalee, yeah, let's hope she can now get lane priorities so she can actually play the game. Obviously, Peanut had not that great of a showing and was continued to counter jungle, but obviously this was planned V3 winning lanes and obviously very easily set up and with little Peanut could do in retaliation. The Thresh obviously kinda here showing the Aphelios priority coming in, but also it's a pick away from Carrier in any case, while Callum obviously is a very good player on the Thresh as well if you have watched some games of Nongshim. Carrier still the Thresh god, so picking it away from them is also kinda nice. T1 seeing no change in NS with the bans and the pickaways, so they continue with the same 3 champions as before. Why should you change it if it's still working? The Nidalee has little to do with how these 3 champions want to play the game in the early and mid game stages. Rounding up NS first half obviously with the Aphelios here, that has to follow now because otherwise it would get banned. Aphelios as the Bruiser Shredder will connect on later on, and his range can also be somewhat strong against Lucian should Lucian not go for any rapid fire builds. But still Aphelios in the bot lane here with the safer side can scale up way more and could play some form of weak side against T1's powerful bot lane, as obviously Nidalee again not a bot side ganker, and considering now that NS is on the red side, the bot lane jungle is obviously not a jungle Nidalee is looking forward. That is obviously the top side jungle as I alluded to in many videos before. So again there is some discrepancy with picks that here are done for the bot lane and the jungler that wants to go in the top side here. In the next ban phase, T1 continuing with the Sion ban. Obviously, as I mentioned before, it makes a lot of sense against this top side setup here. That has certainly the epiphany to lose against the Sion and has great issues. The Victor here against the Lucian, well, it was not a pick that destroyed Clozer in game number 1, obviously not, but with the Azir as well, these are 2 picks that are doing fairly okay into Lucian, and yeah, you could call it lose gracefully in lane, which is obviously not what T1 is hoping to achieve. On the other side, Ezreal and Samira. The Samira does not really make sense. Samira picking into this here, obviously not really what T1's bot lane would look forward to, as it would be a hard lane loss. And while T1's bot lane obviously likes to play the weak side, as we saw in the first game, they are only playing weak side champions. Their playstyle, obviously, if they find avenues to win, they are there to punish, and most certainly do. So the Samira, I don't really like the ban too much. Also, I don't like the champion too much, and their team comp already is kinda versatile, so Samira does not really make too much sense. The Ezreal ban, in connotations to the first game, now T1 on a bit of a unsafer side here for their bot lane if they continue with the top side focus, which their draft does indicate. So the Ezreal that would do fairly safe in this setup here. Banning him does make sense. On the other side, we see the Kalista has not been banned in comparison to first game, so that's a slip up that would I have liked to see here. But Bay continuing here the second ban pick phase with the Orianna. Orianna kinda meh into Lucian. She can be safe, but most likely she will miss position and then get chunked. Orianna into Lucian is quite hard for her, so the pick is not too smart. In addition, again, another laner that does not offer lane prior. In contrary, obviously this will go in T1's favor. the Orianna as an AP champion with the Nidalee also not much synergy. And yeah, out of the elected champions there's no reliable ball carrier for her ultimate, while obviously T1 has a comp that likes to move forward, so she could like hide the ball and T1 has to move over the ball. But yeah, that's very greedy and yeah, says that you have the setup of the ball already while T1 is engaging into you. And that's just not really the way you want to do it. It also means that you have no aggressive potential should you be the one to seek the fights, because you have no real engage here already elected. But T1 going here now for the bot lane in the second half of the picks. Kalista Neeko, kinda T1 special if you may. So Neeko into Thresh, a pick that Carrier personally really likes, and if you have put some effort into Neeko support, you would also find to agree with him. Really works well in the lane and even later on. Kalista further enabling the Neeko and making her, let's say, more relevant and more able to be picked in pro play than the solo queue. And Kalista obviously, as I mentioned in the first game, very powerful pick for Teddy personally, with I think around like 75-78% win rate and obviously great stats. Continuing here, T1 has now found two one-sided lanes in their favor. Aphelios Thresh is not a lane to scoff at, but obviously Kalista and Neeko is on another level in terms of early and mid-game power. The same top side here for NS in game number 2. The draft again for NS, not very optimal. They have adapted in the bot lane with more power, but lost more power and reliability in the mid lane, and again face the same issues, that they lose early, that they lose the entire map, that Nidalee will be set behind and has no option to play around. Later, in desperate situations, the engage potential is an Aatrox flank, which obviously is even harder if you're behind due to the lack of vision and setup. The Thresh hooks, obviously with high mobility here on T1, not too reliable as well. So Aphelios really is their only option to scale up to a good amount and then kill T1 while they are charging into NS. Let's call it phalanx, which really is made out of paper shields. Like Thresh and Aatrox will be ripped apart by this high damage setup of T1, especially considering the leads that will T1 have in these stages. And T1 is also not too bad. Their frontline again, not too strong and not too tanky, but the space they create, right? First time it was Galio W and Galio Ultimate. Now it's Neeko Ultimate with the just very powerful, especially here against Aphelios Orianna, who are rather immobile, and Thresh W. Yeah, it can only save one if even one. So here T1 picking up the second win in the series, ending at 2-0. They are getting better drafts, and NS could have found punishes, especially to the Renekton first pick here, and they did not elect these punishes. So yeah, that's their mistake. T1 though, further capitalizing on these mistakes in game and in draft. And I really liked here personally that they pick champions that suit their players, that suit their players' playstyle, like the Ezreal and Kalista for Teddy, and especially the Lucian for Clozer. Well, it probably was something they prepared before. The pick really fits his personal playstyle instead of the control mages that they were trying with him before. So the way they win is more natural and inclined to their nature. And yeah, as they are also younger players, their proactiveness has been rather great. So getting them these champions that need to be proactive and that excel being proactive is really a heads up play from the staff and from the drafting team here. While obviously you might want to see other players here for the T1 roster, so far this team has excelled in beating these lower level teams in NS and Liiv Sandbox. Rather surprisingly maybe, but rather confident and cleanly. So this leads up to the coming series. But yeah, that's a topic for the next video. Thanks for watching here. T1 with this roster. Yeah, they might really shape up to be a challenge for Down1 Kia in the upcoming video. So yeah, stay tuned for that. You don't really want to miss that, and be hyped. But yeah, for now, that's it. Stay safe, have a good time, bye.